On today's video we take a look at some radios you probably didn't notice but featured in one of the biggest movies of all time. The movie in question? Jaws. Jaws was a 1975 American thriller film directed by Steven Spielberg and based on the 1974 novel of the same name by Peter Benchley. We first see the radios appear in the movie around the 55-minute mark as Brody passes the beach arcade and tries to contact his colleagues who are all out offshore in boats looking for the shark. Brody pulls out a slim, for the time, walkie-talkie with a rubber duck antenna and attempts to contact his group of colleagues. The radio Brody's character is using in this scene is the Motorola HT-220. The Motorola HT-220 is the successor to the Motorola HT-200, which was released in the mid-1960s. The Motorola HT-220 is a two-way FM, VHF or UHF handheld radio that was introduced in 1969. It was a major breakthrough in the miniaturization of walkie-talkies, using two integrated circuits to replace 51 transistors. This made the HT-220 50% smaller and 40% lighter than its predecessor, the HT-200, while still packing the same 5 watts of power. The HT-220 was an instant success and it quickly became the standard for professional two-way radio communications. It was used by law enforcement, fire departments, businesses and even the military. Here are some of the key features of the Motorola HT-220. It had up to 5 watts of power in both VHF and UHF variants. It covered 136 to 174 MHz frequency range in VHF and an impressive 406 to 512 MHz in UHF. It had a maximum of 6 channels and all other call options including PLL and a special marine version that offered high and low power switching to extend battery life, although it could only cover 6 of the 12 marine channels at that time. Anyone who has used one will know it's a very durable construction and for the time had a decent battery life compared to sets like the HT-200, which were much heavier and thirstier on batteries. All these attributes and its ease of availability during that time made this an ideal choice for a sturdy, well-made prop for the movie, with the VHF capability of the 220 being perfectly suitable for marine band radio use at the time, albeit on its limited 6 channels. I am sure that Motorola probably supplied the sets free of charge to the production in return for placement advertising, as is so often the case, but unlike many other movies where we see product placement with its brand or logo highlighted very visibly, there is no branding for Motorola on display in this movie. In the next few shots that follow, the camera interchanges between Hooper and the Deputy Hendricks, who are both using the Motorola HT-220, but there are subtle differences. You will notice as Brody passes the arcade, you can see that the radio is visibly slimmer than that of the Deputy's and Hooper's radios. This is because the HT-220 came in 2 variants, the slimline version and the Omni. The Omni version had multiple board options, so as a thicker case to accommodate these features. This is why when you see sets with 2 control knobs and others with up to 4 knobs and sometimes extra switches. These were all options available on the Omni version, but they weren't available on the slimline version due to its slimmer form factor. Over the years, Motorola also used different speaker grill patterns on the front of the radio. We don't see the front of Hooper or the Deputy's radios, but we can see from Brody's set that the speaker grill on this radio at least wasn't the later flat grill, but the raised grill. They also did a gold version as well before the radio was retired in 1982. The only other differences were the antenna. Brody and the Deputy's radios were affixed with a VHF rubber duck antenna, and Hooper's radio was touting a telescopic antenna, which, as per nearly every other TV or movie show of the time, the antenna was never extended fully to its full length, something that would have almost certainly damaged the set, which, if it were ever switched on, would be pushing out a solid 5 watts of power. Of course, in reality, none of these sets were ever lightly switched on or even had a battery pack in them. The interaction with the radios is only brief, but I am sure radio lovers out there will almost certainly remember the scene and will maybe be wondering what the radios were. These radios do appear from time to time and are popular amongst collectors for that reason, as the HT-220 appeared in many movies and TV shows at the time. One other sought after item from the movie is Hooper's watch. In this scene you might be distracted by the radio to a rather nice diving watch strapped around the wrist of Dreyfus. This wasn't a Rolex Submariner as many people incorrectly state, but was a modified Ulster super automatic watch. The one in the movie had a split chain and an elastic wristband to enable the actor to easily slip the watch over his wetsuit. This was a genuine diving watch, and limited edition near replica has been made by the company, who are now called Ulster. They are available but at a slightly more expensive price than the HT-220 at $1,000. Yes, if you are after a genuine screen accurate prop from the movie, it's much cheaper to get the Walkie Talkie. We don't see the Walkie Talkies appear again in the movie, but there is another very iconic scene with a marine radio later on in the film that I won't mention just in case some of my younger viewers have yet to see the movie. If you can remember seeing the HT-220 in other movies and TV shows, please leave a comment below. If you are interested in the watch, you're probably going to need a bigger wallet. Until next time.
Those black eyes roll over white, and then then you hear that terrible high-pitched screaming. The ocean turns red. In spite of all the pounding and the hollering, they all come in, they rip you to pieces.